Perfect. Welcome everyone to the May 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee of Sonoma County. As always, we will start with introductions.
Elizabeth Reed, Region Parks. Laura Ebony, Town of Windsor.
Greg Scott, City of Ty. Mike Berger, City of Sonoma.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
Neither Daho, Sonoma County, SBI.
Hunter McLaughlin, Sonoma County Public Infrastructure. Jordan Goodberg, City of Petaluma.
Tarina Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
Derek Montani, City of Florida.
Dave Ripple, SCTA, RCPA.
Shauna Gauze, SCTA, RCPA.
James Cameron, SCTA, RCPA.
Chris Bonnie, SCTA, RCPA.
Seth Fred, SCTA, RCPA.
Jim Nichols, SCTA, RCPA.
All right, thanks everyone. And just to set some ground rules, no chanting "We want Elizabeth" at any time during this meeting. It will be forcibly removed. Anyone online for public comments?
I don't see any members of the public online, but just to announce the names, I see we have Ross Clendenin and it's here, Steve Urbanek from the County of Sonoma, and then the rest are just SCTA, RCPA staff who are in this room.
Okay, thank you, Drew, and welcome everyone online as well. Item number 3, approval of meeting minutes from April 25th. Anyone have any additions, corrections? Seeing none, that will pass unanimously. On to item 4, Measure M and Go Sonoma 4.1 invoicing and obligation status. Shauna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The invoicing and obligation status is included for your information as it is every month. And then with your permission, I'll move on to
Please.
4.2. So the second item under this, under item number 4 is the CAC presentation schedule for Measure M projects. Before I go into that, I would like to say that we are also going to be developing a presentation schedule that will hopefully mesh with this one for the upcoming Go Sonoma projects that will be receiving funding in the upcoming fiscal year, just so you know, so that you will be expected to come and present on those projects to the Citizens Advisory Committee as well. That being said, this schedule is for the Measure M projects, and as we wrap up Measure M, there are fewer and fewer projects that are receiving new programming, new-ish programming in Measure M. So a lot of the projects that are shown on this list are carried forwards, although there are a couple of new ones, including the in that first section on July 29th, we added West County Trail to the presentation schedule.
Question on that one, that might be Sonoma County Applied lead on that because we partnered with them on the class 1 trail.
So you guys need to talk to each other because every time we talk to Pi, they tell us that that part's yours. So
Make sure that the pie speaks to the non-pie.
Yeah.
right. So point of this is the Measure M projects are required to either be audited or be presented. We opt for being presented so that you don't have to go through an audit process. It's always an option for the CAC to decide that you could get audited, but this was our way of making sure that they are informed about your projects so that we can sort of move past that audit requirement. So please look these over, put them into your calendar as soon as you can. If there is a problem with it, please let me know by the end of this week, so that because this will also go to the Citizens Advisory Committee. And we want to make sure that we're presenting them with something that's been vetted through you first. So in case there are conflicts or whatever with the dates that have been selected.
Santa Rosa does have a conflict because March 31st is a city holiday for Cesar Chavez Day, question mark. Do you observe that too?
If we do.
Okay,
Yes.
Can you do January 27th? We have that date open.
I'm pretty sure yes, but let me follow up.
So we'll
January
tentatively-
27th.
Yeah, we'll tentatively move it to there. And I will fix that because thank you. I have not seen that either. That is. That concludes that item, but before we move on off of the measure items, I would also like to make a reminder that with Go Sonoma, we've already been through one cycle of the quarterly reporting without, everybody met with Trinity and Nguyen 3 months ago. So June 1st, we'll start the next quarterly reporting cycle. I will send out an email reminder on June 1st. You will have until June 15th to complete your portion of the quarterly reporting. And then I will try to get that reviewed and then talk to you if I need to, and then posted to our website by the end of June. So.
I'm sorry, what was the date for the quarterly that we?
June 1st will be when I send out the reminder. June 15th will be when you need to have your quarterly reporting posted. And then I will try to get that posted to our website by the 30th.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to make you repeat that.
No, not a problem at all. And then, of course, for Measure M, you can anticipate that you will also be receiving your annual reminder letters for your annual reporting for Measure M. And that would be for all the programs that receive funding or all of the sponsors that receive funding. So local bus transit, local streets and roads, rehabilitation, local street projects, bicycle and pedestrian projects, and the rail program. On to report. So apportionment programs and project-specific programs. And those are due in September, but I usually send out the reminder beginning in June. So you'll get a reminder in June, you'll get a reminder somewhere in the middle of somewhere later that gives you the balances that you reported last year so that you know what your carry forward balance is. So
You have any questions for Shauna? No. Okay, on item 5.1, inactive federal obligation, another informational item.
yes, sir. And like I did last month, if your updates were stale, then the notes section of this table is in bright red. So please, if you have anything if you have a red section in the notes, the SCTA notes from the previous meeting, then please give us an update.
Okay, on to item 6, travel model transition, another informational item. Is that Adam?
Yes, good afternoon. Adam Garcia, data analyst, SCTA, RCPA. I'm excited to be talking to you today about a transition we're going through with how we do our travel modeling. So it's incredibly important for doing analysis on road projects, development projects, citywide plans, specific plans. Every time a major project kind of gets presented, we have to run it through the travel model to be able to understand exactly how would that impact road network, what improvements would need to be made, and so forth. So currently we are using a somewhat antiquated trip-based model. So this is thinking about, there's different zones, kind of like census block group size, census tract, and there are trips that happen between those zones. So part of what we went through a few months ago was just trying to get a sense, and we're going to be going through in the near future, what are the land uses within each of these zones, and can we start to anticipate both kind of based off population and employment, where people travel between these different zones. Individual trips though, so one trip would be counted, say home to work, another trip would be counted work to pick up your kids at school. So all of those are individual trips. So what we're looking forward to doing, to catching up with essentially the rest of the Bay Area, is doing something called an activity-based model. So this is a lot more data intensive, but it gives us greater precision of moving past these zones and actually thinking about individuals and households. what are their relationships and how can we understand how those trips that they do take are not just individual trips, but they are linked throughout a whole day potentially. And so being able to have more data about households, about kind of the street network, more detailed land uses gives us an opportunity to have more refined results when we do these types of then results. So how would a new roadway improvement project impact? We can understand at a greater precision, say active transportation impacts potentially, or other variables. So there's a couple different methods of how we can approach this transition going from the trip-based model to the activity-based model. One is just doing an incremental improvements to the trip-based model over time, slowly trying to get it to a level at which you can have that specificity of the activity-based model. A second version is examining the potential for using MTC's activity-based model. They are anticipating, I think, releasing the final travel model 2.0, as they call it, I think by the end of this year. So this is kind of Bay Area based. It's been verified kind of through different methods, just looking at traffic counts and trying to get up to date with transit routes and making sure that data is up to date, and the assumptions that go in it. Then the third option is looking at what Marin has done. They took an older version of MTC's travel model 2.0 and adapted that to consider local issues kind of related to SMART, to kind of the highway and 101 issues. And that provides for SCTA a good proxy, at least since we share a lot of those same resources, and they've made some updates to the travel model 2.0 to use that approach. The challenges that we're going to be facing with either approach, there's two main ones. One is that none of the travel models, activity-based models, have what we have right now, is something that includes a tourism-based kind of analysis in the travel model. So understanding how tourism affects the county. And then secondly, the other thing that we'll have to think about is how we interact with Mendocino and Lake counties. Those are also not included in either of the options right now. So those would be additional costs in either scenario to try to get us up to speed with even where we're at with the trip-based model today. So let's see, I'll maybe just pause there and see if there's any questions. There's a great, I think, report that hopefully you've had a chance, the white paper, that just gives a great background, even if the travel model data in this process is kind of intimidating. It gives a good overview just to walk you through it, and then a little bit more details as well. MTC, just I'll say one more thing, MTC will be providing some comments on this as well, so it's not a final paper. It will be finalized hopefully in the next coming weeks though. So with that, maybe I'll just stop and see if there's any just general questions about travel modeling or specifically about the transition as well.
We're going to determine the option for the transition, because you have three options. I don't know, first one was NPCs, and the third was the Marin's customized.
Yeah, the first option is probably the least appealing because it's not really getting us to where we want. It's kind of taking piecemeal approach. So, but the other two, I think we have to really take, a close look at what they provide. MTC is noting that if we wait just a little bit longer, they might have a product that we can jump onto at the end of this year to try to start adapting, or actually we wouldn't start working until next year on this, but and then, yeah, the improvements that MTC has made, would we then have to do some kind of backfilling on TAM's model to try to get it up to speed? So it has some advantages where the TAM model has been localized for Marin, so we can kind of build off some of that customization. But at the same time, those other improvements that MTC's pending travel model will not be included in that kind of older TAM model. So it's probably, like all things, will come down to cost. So what would be the cost of doing each approach? And so how we can break that up might be one in terms of how we run the model. Right now, the trip-based model we can do in-house. These more robust activity-based models, we would probably have to contract out. I'm not sure if we would have to do that for MTCs, but travel model 2.0, but I think for the TAM one, we would. And then, yeah, the cost of trying to, let's say for the TAM models, figure out what would we have to do to get it more up to date? And then, yeah, I think just operational costs. I'm not exactly sure which ones would the difference between TAM and MTC. But it's a good question. I'll maybe just see, Chris, do you have anything else to add on that
Sure, yeah.
question?
We should come up to the table and we have a mic.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a few additions. I think, Edie, getting to your question, we're planning on putting together a procurement sometime like next summer. And so I think that would be one of the first tasks, right? Like looking at the two options, looking at the TAM model and the MTC model where it's at, and, providing some recommendations, right? Based on what would meet our needs the best. As Adam said, the Marin model's been customized a lot to kind of reflect North Bay conditions more. So Marin, although it is very different than Sonoma County, it's, there are some similarities to how people travel and land use patterns and everything up here that aren't super well reflected in the Bay Area wide model. So there's already been some work and there could be some cost savings we could see there. But as Adam also said, MPC's been working on adding additional functionality to the regional model that we could take advantage of by next summer. Yeah, so we'll see, we definitely need to move in that direction. Also, right now we can run the model in-house, so that's a huge benefit, but we're kind of reaching the end of the useful life of our current model as well. So we'll probably keep that on life support and going along for certain types of analyses in the short term. It is nice to be able to have something in-house we can run in 30 minutes to take a look at different issues or analyses. But for the bigger things, we need something that's more state of practice. An activity-based model isn't even state of the art anymore. It's kind of the norm. So we really need to move in that direction, and it'll allow us to look at VMT more, more detailed, to estimate change trips and look at non-motorized travel, a lot more accurately than we're able to do right now. So there are a lot of benefits to going in that direction, but it's bigger, more complicated, more expensive, and it'll be more difficult for us to kind of run and maintain in-house. So there are definitely trade-offs, but yeah, it's kind of the direction we need to move in. And MDC definitely is pushing us in that direction. So we have a little bit of a respite from them to, push this out a few more years, but, we definitely need to move in that direction. So we're consistent with MPC and with our colleagues around the Bay Area. So hopefully that answered.
Let me ask a follow-up question. Adam, you mentioned tourism, and I believe you said RCPA model catches some of that. Do you need either options for you? You mentioned you need to incorporate that somehow. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's a special module that we that SCTA added to the travel model that I think we'll have to do again for the activity-based model. There's just more considerations in terms of attractors and where tourists are getting drawn to that we would need to add into either version. I don't think MTC has anything like that either. So an additional cost either way.
Yes, so in Petaluma, we're going through our general plan update right now, and it sounds like this could have some implications. I'm curious if there's anything I should be relaying to our general plan team as far as the timing and which model ultimately gets used for the general plan.
Yeah, what's your timing on having kind of a?
I'm not the best person to speak to that, but we're well underway, obviously, so I'm assuming they're probably targeting adoption sometime early next year, would be my guess.
Yeah, so I think we would for sure be using the travel or the trip-based model.
Okay, existing,
yeah,
the existing model.
Existing.
And do you have any advice on how to, I mean, is there? Yeah, how do you advise kind of navigating that as far as any major changes that might come out of or significant advantages to using the new model?
You want me to? Okay, I think specifically to your general plan, we're not gonna have the new model ready to go until probably 2027 anyway.
Okay.
So it's a ways out. But there are things that could be done with the current model to kind of dial things in for your general plan analysis. So usually when a consultant is doing that work, they'll take a look at the changed land use patterns and drop those into the model. So that's a critical piece there.
Right.
So I'm sure that'll happen. And usually they'll do some targeted validation too. So we'll take current counts and make sure the model's pretty close. Which I think would be important to do in this case, since the model was last validated before the pandemic. And so things have likely changed a little bit. So there may need to be some slight tweaks to make sure that it's roughly in the right spot. So those are, the recommendations I would make to using the model this time around.
Okay.
And we can provide support as you get closer to whoever's doing it.
Okay.
Is the next step reviewing the cost implications of path 2 versus path 3?
Yeah, well, let's see. Next step will be incorporating MTC's comments and finalizing the white paper. That'll have some implications just maybe in terms of a better understanding of what would be needed to either update the TAM model or go with the MTC travel model 2.0. But yeah, I think Chris mentioned the next step wouldn't probably be until actually we put out a bid for actually doing the transition update.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, next summer.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Marin option is interesting since they've been able to capture smart and we have the same 101 problems, right, with pass through. So I think that's interesting. But then if it's outdated, then that's another issue. So
yeah, exactly. We'll have to see, well, what are the innovations that MTC has made that are worthwhile to update or.
So I would say one benefit is the modeling community is relatively small. And so there's a small group of people working on the Marin model and the MTC model. So some of those, if we do decide to build on the new MTC model, whoever's doing the work could most likely incorporate some of the work that's been done on the TAM model. It would be more work, right? But
it would still be a cost savings if we went with the MTC version up front, because they'd know what TAM had done.
Yeah, depending on who's on the team, and we could structure the procurement to kind of consider that, right? Because knowledge of the different modeling systems is important to that project.
Thank you, Adam. Our next item is the VMT mitigation project and equity priority community update.
Yeah, so that'll be me. So I'll give a quick update on our VMT mitigation banking and exchange project. So we've actually selected Fair and Peers to provide consultant support on that project. So we have them under contract right now. So we'll be kicking that project off very soon. So the first tasks that we're going to be working on are identifying the key issues that we need to consider as part of the project. So that'll be happening May, June. We'll also be developing a project TAC to help guide that project. So if anyone's interested, please let me know. I'm sure we'll reach out directly to different organizations as well to see if and how you'd like to participate. So that group will be meeting more regularly to kind of talk about deliverables and guide the project and guide consultant work. And then we'll bring regular updates to this group and the planners as well on how things are going and to help review deliverables and guide the project as well. So at this point, we're looking at probably having something to look at in July. So it'll either be me or myself and the consultant team bringing back something outlining those key issues that we should be thinking about when establishing some sort of banking or exchange program, talking about who's on the project TAC, right, and outlining the schedule and work plan for that group. And then one of the first deliverables is actually to develop a stakeholder outreach plan. So what developers, what other organizations should we be talking to make sure that their needs and considerations are being thought through as part of this. So yeah, so we're going to be underway very soon, and hopefully in July we'll have a more meaty presentation on, you know, what we'll be looking at, who's on that committee, and the stakeholder outreach plan. So yeah, more to come soon. But yeah, please let me know if you're interested in participating in that project TAC. But if you are not available, information will be coming to this group as well, so you won't be left out.
Good to know.
Yep. So that's the VMT item. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments on that. If not, I can move to the equity priority communities.
Love to be on the tag.
Yes, that would be
Sign
great.
me up.
Okay. All right. So if we're ready to move on to the equity priorities community piece, I can actually share my screen and bring up the map. So some of you may be familiar with equity priority communities. So MTC actually, so there's the map up there. MTC uses census data and formulas to identify historically disadvantaged and underserved communities throughout the Bay Area. So this has funding implications for regional funding programs. You know, a lot of times there are questions about serving these communities on grant applications. So, you know, either these MTC identified areas or other state or federal methodologies can be used to check those boxes, right? When you're going through those grant applications. But a number of things have changed in Sonoma County. So I just wanted to, you know, give everyone a heads up on how things are changing and let you know that we've provided some comments on these changes in methodologies. So if you look at the map here in Sonoma County, the orange areas have dropped off as EPCs as part of this proposed update. So you can see the Monterey area out in the Russian River area is proposed to drop off. Also the rural area between Santa Rosa and Sebastopol, portion of North Rohnert Park, and some areas in western and central Santa Rosa are proposed to drop off. The teal areas are staying, and we're in the last set of EPCs, and then the purple areas or dark, yeah, I guess dark purple areas are new. So there's an area near the fairgrounds in Santa Rosa and over near Spring Lake, Howarth Park, Highway 12 area in eastern Santa Rosa. So that's all how things have been shifting. We've also heard from MTC staff. We were able to meet with them, I think, last month in April. They talked about the process. And they let us know that there were some issues with the data that had been collected during this time period. So they're using data for this recent update that's from 2018 through 2022. So because of the pandemic and other issues, there were lower than average response rates. So there are some data quality issues, and the margin of error is pretty large. And it's also, we're expecting there to be some weird things happening just because of the pandemic and people moving around and, people working from home in different places that are maybe skewing average incomes up, that could be a factor out in the Monterey area. So due to those potential issues, we actually sent a letter to MTC requesting that for future funding decisions, that they take an additive approach to these EPCs and not let EPCs drop off the map for future funding decisions. But if new things pop up, to consider adding those, or to consider, these orange areas and the new areas as an either or going forward, or to let us identify our own areas. So and in addition to that, we've also emphasized that there are a lot of different ways of looking at this. Each map is a little different. You've probably seen some of these as you've put together different grant applications. They'll identify some areas and some won't be there. There's the state EQI index. It's a Caltrans method of looking at this. There's the portrait of Sonoma County that looked at this specifically in our county. So we're really encouraging MTC to consider this as they go forward, and they're going to be re-looking at the methodology. I believe they said next year. So we'd really like to be involved in that conversation and make sure that our local issues are being considered, and the communities that are typically overlooked when you're looking at this from the regional scale aren't being kind of missed out. So just wanted to let you know where that's at. And then, make sure you have a copy of the map and what our response has been. So hopefully MDC will take that under consideration. It's kind of there was consensus at the Bay Area level that these were issues that MTC should consider. So we're not the only county that made similar comments. So hopefully, we'll get a positive response from MTC sometime this summer or this year on what they plan to do. So, but that's where things at, and the maps in the packet, if you want to refer back to that. And there's actually a map on MTC's website as well. You can shift between the old map and the new map. So if you prefer to look at something like that, let me or Adam know, and we can point you towards that.
Is this technically the now adopted EPCs that we're supposed to be using, or when's that date?
They're draft at this point.
Okay.
So right now, the orange and teal areas are the adopted Plan Bay Area 2050 EPCs that you should be using now.
Okay.
But we're expecting they will adopt something as part of Plan Bay Area 2050 plus. I'd expect sometime this year.
And they have not replied to your letter with concerns yet?
No, we sent the letter last week, so it's, the due date was the 15th of May, so it was. Hasn't been really long enough for them to respond yet.
Yeah, the Roseland area is a little iffy.
Yeah, it's kind of broken
I
up.
mean, the Monterey too, but the Roseland's alarming, so.
Yeah. And
Okay,
I think that's the area south of Hearn, between Hearn and Bellevue, yeah.
yeah,
So there's been a lot of development there, so that could be contributing maybe, but
could be. The
Yeah.
problem is just that when MTC is messing with these, is even though there's the new development, it's piecemeal. So
Yeah.
it means that things that are not developing still have that historic,
right.
we're not paying attention to them. So that would be discouraging if, because they're updating these, we have less leverage to go get grant funding to fix the entire network in these areas.
And one thing that we run into a lot in Sonoma County is they use census tracts, which are really pretty big areas. And so in Sonoma County, you'll have a lower income area right next to a very affluent area. So it kind of evens things out and it kind of dilutes what you may be seeing. And in Santa Rosa, as part of the Santa Rosa general plan update, they took more detailed census geographies and took a look at it, and it really broke things out and kind of addressed a lot of those issues. So we've recommended that MTC look at that type of approach in the future, especially for areas like us, right?
And just one more issue that came up to mention was just the actual census boundaries were updated for 2020. So as populations changed, I know Santa Rosa had, I think, a couple that just kind of skewed our results where it's a little more challenging to just go from 2018 then to 2020 because those boundaries have shifted. So that I think, definitely played out in the kind of a Russian River area and southeast Santa Rosa. Both of those had census tracts that were broken apart. So if you're just looking at a smaller area, then that larger previous census tract would have gotten broken up.
I want to say thank you for providing a review and comments back to MTC in regional parks. We were also surprised.
Yeah.
And all the orange going on in that. Projects going on there, especially rural Russian.
Yeah, and one issue that we're specifically concerned about is we prepared community-based transportation plans in a lot of these areas that are dropping off, or, in Rohnert Park, we're kicking that off, and part of it is, being proposed to drop off. And there's still a lot of issues there that haven't been addressed, so, we don't want weird data quirks or splitting census tracts to kind of dilute the data and kind of mask what's really going on. So, we'll keep on it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris. Item number 8, the upcoming SCTA RCPA meeting of June 10th. Anything we want to discuss regarding that?
I'm trying to pull it up right now. I can tell you that we have a couple of contract renewals or amendments. I will be taking the project delivery status. So you guys all got back to me on that, but we'll be taking that to the board soon.
This is not connected to SharePoint, actually.
Oh, so you can't pull it up?
So I'm learning, I think, pull this up right now.
Okay.
And then what happens, I download it, so give me another minute, I'll pull it back up, you want to go to the next side.
Okay.
Come back to this.
Well, I've got it here on my phone, so I can at least address the items that are there. But the project delivery status will go to the board so that they're informed on, how the delivery is going. We'll also be looking at a contract for the RM3 funding and the Highway 101 planting feasibility study and a cooperative agreement with the county. Regular items will include Land Area 2050.
Yeah.
You have it now? Great,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
we can share if you want.
And the integrated transit plan recommendations report.
What's the plan area 50 item?
Yes, MPC will be there to talk about the status of Plan Bay area. So the project list won't be released yet. So we'll be talking about at a high level how the analysis is going and the schedule for the summer.
Okay.
So that'll be a interesting item. Please tune in if you're interested.
Will Smart be attending? Kidding. Thank you. Anyone have any questions about the upcoming agenda? Seeing none, item 9, roundtable discussion. Anyone have any great news to bring up or not so great news? Nope. I cried today.
I'm really interested if anyone plans to submit for HSIP cycle 12. I attended their webinar at some point this week, and the VCR sitch is interesting. Is anybody?
It's reducing, making it, no?
So
Last cycle,
apparently what they do, what I've learned, is they give a low BCR. So this year they say, if you're above 4, applies. But then in the Q&A, that's not the case. So in the Q&A, they clarified that that's their baseline. They're gonna get all the applications and then they're gonna redecide what the minimum BCR is based on all of the projects. When they did that last year, their minimum BCR was in the 30s. And so someone said, well, how do I know if I should apply or not if my BCR is low? And they said, well, you can technically apply if you're above 4, but if you're anything 10 and below, you probably shouldn't apply. Then again, maybe you should only apply if you're at least 15. But then you're probably likely to get it if you start in the 20s. And I'm just sitting there like, what? Like, does anybody have a project that's that high?
I don't know what the number is. I know we applied last cycle, got one and failed on another.
Okay,
And the score was close.
okay,
The benefit cost ratio was very close.
yeah,
So we're looking at perhaps doing that one again. Though we might be applying, I'm not positive.
yeah,
Yeah, and
Is that
for
your
both,
signal?
yeah, for both Healdsburg Signal Project and Pelham Signal Project, they were submitted to us as part of the Safe Streets for All grant.
mhm,
And we committed to helping those cities with their HSIP applications. So,
yeah,
but I don't know what we get the BCRs in at.
yeah. We were thinking that we would do Stony Point, but our BCR when we applied cycle 11 was 7.7-ish. And now that we have Dan Hennessy on board in TPW, he wants to make some changes so that it's more like progressive in design, but then the cost is gonna go up. So we're gonna have to kind of figure out if that'll get us there. I'm kind of thinking probably not.
And I should say, from our past experience with Pelham on the HSIP project on the Caltrans highway system, it can get very tricky dealing with the local assistance side and the capital side.
Yeah.
And that may not be the best funding source for Stony Point.
Take it back to the drawing board.
Anyone else?
I have a couple of announcements. If we
Good.
have anything for the bid environment or grants. So the first is, there is an affordable roundabouts webinar that's going to happen next week. Hopefully everybody received this, but I just sort of wanted to bring it to your attention. It's happening on Wednesday, the 29th. Let me know if you need me to forward this information to you.
I believe it's focusing on modular roundabouts that I know Windsor and Roanoke Park are interested in.
And then the second announcement I wanted to make is that CTC staff has indicated that they have not received much interest in the LTCAP program, the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program. And I wanted to bring everybody's attention to the fact that they will be holding office hours for cycle 2 until June 6th. So you can book an appointment with the CTC staff if you are considering applying. They highly recommend that if you are considering applying, that you actually sit down with CTC staff for office hours and ask your questions and do what you need to do. So again, let me know if you want me to forward this information.
Can you forward that to me? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that one either.
LTCAP.
I'd like to see it.
So this
I'll
is
just
the
forward to the whole.
This is the second funding cycle for this funding source, and the first cycle had a mix of federal and state funds. This cycle is only federal funds, and it's really designed around kind of climate adaptation, evacuation routes, that sort of thing. So if you have projects
I do
that
remember reading that.
can have that type of benefit, definitely look at applying for this. There's 90.7 million available in fiscal year 26-27 and 27-28. Applications are due August 30th and will be programmed in March of 2025.
I now recognize it, and I remember when I saw that come through, I thought. Areas like Marin or Richmond are probably better suited because they're like 101 corridors are essentially underwater. Are you aware of projects out here that you think are good?
So in the first cycle, MTC got 25 million awarded for Highway 37. So this is the CPC's portion of the federal protect funds that I know the county submitted an application for Lakeville Highway. This year it wasn't successful, but there are other areas for evacuation routes out in the county or maybe even Farmers Lane that could be a potential good project for this funding source. I should note though, however, if you do an evacuation route, when you apply, you have to make sure you send a letter to the Secretary of Transportation at USDOT to say, hey, we're applying for an evacuation route, but here's why. So there's a little box you gotta check there.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's all I have for announcements, Mr. Chair.
Going once? Nothing else? Adjourned. Thanks, everyone. See you in a month.